Hey guys, it's Miss Arlequin, and in this lesson, we are going to be starting our end of the novel study writing task for Monster. So in this lesson, we are going to go over the task and we're going to brainstorm and plan some ideas for the writing. Alright, so as we know, Monster is written in a very unique format, a combination of journal entries and a movie script. So we're going to actually try to mimic the formatting, especially the movie script part of it. For this task, you are going to imagine that Steve and his father bump into each other in a diner after the trial is over. They sit down in a booth together and they discuss Steve's trial from their own perspectives. So you are going to write this in the form of a movie script. Whenever we have any kind of writing assignment, there's always 4 things that we need to figure out. You got to make sure that you can figure out and understand what the topic is, what the format you're going to be writing this is, who your audience is, and what your overall purpose for writing is. Because as we've discussed in class, your purpose will dictate the way that you write something, the tone that you choose, the types of words, the types of information that you give. All right, so for this task, once again, we know that we are writing a dialogue between 2 characters where they discuss how they feel about the trial. And since it is a dialogue and we're mimicking Monster's style, we are writing a screenplay, aka a movie script. The audience would be obviously people who have read Monster, because we're not telling them the whole story. We're writing almost an additional scene or like a sequel. And so our purpose, it's a movie script, so of course it should be entertaining, but it is also an opportunity within the scene to reveal the perspectives of the characters, which I can see in the topic. They're discussing the trial from their own perspective. So that is what we want our audience to understand when they read this. It's not just a conversation about, hi dad, how are you? What are you ordering? I'm going to get a burger. That kind of dialogue, even though it does somewhat fit in a realistic conversation between these 2 characters, it's not really what our focus should be. We've talked in class before about how when you write a story, even those stories, as an author, you are trying to mimic real life for the most part, unless you're going the fantasy route. So you're trying to mimic real life, but you are not actually writing everything that would happen in real life, right? You don't have your character go to the bathroom unless going to the bathroom is vital to the development of the plot. Same thing for this diner scene, right? Yes, obviously in real life, they would be ordering their food from the waitress. But spending a page on them ordering food is not going to help me achieve my purpose. The purpose is to focus on the trial, what has happened to Steve, how does Steve feel about it, and how does the father feel about it. So let's think about this scenario a little bit deeper. Let's imagine that in our scene, Steve runs into his father, and we hear the 2 of them start to speak to each other. Which dialogue would most likely be spoken by the father? So again, to think about this and answer this question, you got to really think about what you know about Mr. Harmon from the original story. Is it A? Mr. Harmon says, I love you, Steve. I always knew you were innocent. Or is it B? Mr. Harmon says, Steve, I remember the boy you used to be. What happened to him? Well, obviously, we're going to choose B. Because, once again, if we think about what we already read in the original book, Monster, yes, Mr. Harmon does love Steve, but he did not always know that he was innocent. We have that scene where Mr. Harmon visits Steve in the prison, and he talks about how surprised he is, that he never imagined visiting his son in jail. And he talks about all the dreams that he had for him, what he thought Steve's future was going to be. So that makes B the better choice. So I asked you this question, not only to get you to think about what we know about the characters, but to show you how it is incredibly important for this task that you are thinking like the characters, you're remaining true to their behavior as we know it from the original story, and using what we know about them as characters to kind of help us create the topic of conversation. So for this planning, I've shared with you guys a template in Google Classroom. You are going to start by focusing on Steve. How does Steve feel about the trial and everything that has happened? You're going to write your response here in this box. And then, using the book, you are going to come up with some topics of discussion. What are some things that happened in the book, either events that took place or Steve's own thoughts? You can use his journal entries. What are some things that he would want to talk with his father about? It's got to be things that we can specifically trace back to the book. What does he want to talk about, and how does he feel about these events? In other words, what would he be telling his father? Then you're going to do the same thing for Mr. Harmon. How does Mr. Harmon feel about the trial and everything that happened? And then using stuff from the book, what are some events that Mr. Harmon would bring up to Steve? Things that happened and were described in the book that he would then want to talk about with him. And what would Mr. Harmon say about those events? What are his feelings? What are his thoughts about it? All right, so you're going to complete this planning chart once again by going to the Google Classroom assignment and opening up the template that I shared with you. And then I will be looking over your plannings and giving you guys some feedback, especially if I see you going off in the wrong direction.